I'm David Bank with Impact Alpha. I'm here at the Global Impact Investing Network Impact Forum in Copenhagen, and I have Graham Singh from the Trinity Centers Foundation in Montreal. Welcome, Graham.
Great to be here, David. Nice to have a chat.
I think you've got a big idea about how to turn sort of a problem into an opportunity. Church properties. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we're creating a mortgage fund for charities to be able to operate closed churches. We've got loads of charities that need space. We've got loads of empty churches. And so we're trying to see that transition happen.
And we have empty churches because church attendance is down, aging population.
We call it a once in 500-year operating system revolution in faith communities. And the way in which Europe's religions worked has changed in 500 years. It's a big part of colonialism. You want to see a picture of what colonization looks like, just go and find a big old white church steeple in the middle of a city and say, what if the folks who run that property actually want to see that place serve the poor and community and impact? And that's what we're seeing. We're trying to create a financing vehicle to allow that transformation to happen with those very important urban properties.
Yeah, they're terrific buildings. They're right in the middle of town. They've got land around them. And so what are folks doing? How do you repurpose them?
So we have two main outcomes. One is a community hub where we keep the building and we just use it all the time for as many charities and nonprofits, social enterprises as we can. And the second is we don't need that building and it could become housing. So those are our two main outcomes.
And so what is the sort of financing mechanism that enables that all to happen?
So property, mortgages, it's something everybody understands. If 5 charities get together and they want to buy a church, can they go down to the bank and get a mortgage?
Sometimes. No. Rarely.
Very rarely. Usually they will go with a large foundation who will go like a parent would to come and co-sign a mortgage, and they will guarantee that. We're trying to make that happen at scale. So we're creating a credit enhancement vehicle, which will be made up of government and philanthropy. In Canada, that's including 2 of our federal government departments. One is our new federal social finance fund, which we can't stop talking about in Canada. We're really excited about $750 million of Canadian federal government funding to help de-risk social impact investment structures like this. And then philanthropic capital that wants to be there doing this kind of thing. That credit enhancement vehicle then allows us to issue a bond. And the intention is to get that bond to investment grade, which, as we all know, is the only thing for many foundations and institutional investors that want to be in this impact space. They still have quite traditional investment policy statements. To give them an investment grade bond is where we're trying to get to with this.
So they fund the bond, and the bond proceeds help charities buy church properties.
You got it.
The charities then keep the property tax and other deductions. That's a key part of it.
That's right.
And the charities then, as you said, can develop it in various ways and build it into a entrepreneurship hub or an art center.
That's right.
Or
whatever that community needs. And those could be charities. It could be nonprofits, could be social enterprises. And that tax exemption, of course, is part of our number one impact metric, which is the reduction of rents. So you look at affordable housing. Affordable housing is a reduction of rent from the market rent for those who need affordable housing. How do we create affordability in rents for the social sector, right? We want charities, nonprofits, social enterprises to be able to operate in an urban environment, but as rents rise, they're being outpriced. So this is a way of actually helping with some rent control, cost control anyways, for the social sector.
And in Canada, this is the Anglican Church mostly, or not? No, but not only.
No. So here's a little easy thing that anybody in North America will recognize. You go to Europe and you have one church per village, right? It's either a Catholic or Protestant church, depending where you are. You come to North America, you had every Protestant church and even every type of Catholic church exported to most communities in North America, right? You go to Main Street America, Main Street Canada, you got Anglican, Lutheran, Catholic, Presbyterian, all on Main Street. So actually we have an oversupply of the different denominations, and just getting them working together to realize what are the buildings we need to keep and what are the ones that could be developed into housing, for instance. There's a certain rationalization. So in Canada, we're getting everybody together, and there's some echoes of the same conversations. There are, as we know, there are beautiful conversations happening around the US as well.
And one of the things that's interesting is the churches can then come back and rent the space for their Sunday morning service.
That's it. From an impact investing point of view, our main beneficiaries are the non-religious entities who need space, right? These are the Black-led, women-led, Indigenous-led organizations who will often say, and it's true, that they have been excluded from religious narratives or really defavored in that structure. So those are our main beneficiaries. But exactly, as you say, a religious community that may have once been the owner or may still own the land, and there's an operating entity that is operating the property and doing the lending or being the recipient or the holder of that financing, sure, they can turn around and say to the church, do you want to come back and rent Sunday morning? And that's a good deal for the church. It's a good deal for the communities that are there. It also then helps open up and say, hey, why don't we have Muslim groups there on Friday? What about Jewish groups there on the Saturday? We've actually created another layer of peacemaking for those faith communities. Yes, it's now if we look at faith communities as one group of impact creators, creating trust, loyalty, adding that faith lens into the community again, it's right-sized, and that property is now collectively governed rather than religiously governed.
And you are operating in Canada. Any opportunities to do the same thing in the US, or is the situation different?
Absolutely. So Canada is a good place to start because our level of religiosity is sufficiently low, right? Try going to Boston or the Pacific Northwest, levels of religiosity very low. Try this in Texas, and you might say, well, Texas has a very different story. We've been told off for saying that in Texas, by the way, and quite a few Texans have come and say, we are seeing that shift happening in Texas as well. So Canada is a place where the levels of the religious decline effectively is creating the conditions that make sense for this, but we have a number of collaborators across the US, very, very good organizations. If we can create a financing structure at scale, and that investment grade bond is a key to getting there, that instrument, and frankly, copies of it or better versions than what we're creating can serve this problem really around the world.
One opportunity for you, or one possible, let me start again. Here's a challenge.
Yeah.
Black churches in the US,
yes,
where sometimes the attendance has gone down. They're sitting on, as you said, very valuable pieces of property. In some cases, the finances of the church often are not that great.
Yes.
What can be done?
Well, let's go back to my earlier comment of the old white churches. I meant that very intentionally, right? The old communities of the wealthy white governing class of any city usually build the cathedrals in the center of the city. The blacker and browner a community is, the more likely it is to be in the suburbs or in the poorer area of town. Here's another piece. Old white churches in the past generation have built new churches in the suburbs. So this is where we have in America the largest churches, same in Canada. We've actually evacuated the city center. Boomers love suburbs. Hipsters hate suburbs. Hipsters like city centers. So actually the more vibrant, dynamic, multicultural, multiracial communities are back into the city centers. And some of the black churches in North America are the most dynamic, most inclusive, most interesting. They want back into the city centers. They have property often that can be built can be used for development, and they know how, and they're very integrated with all kinds of aspects of care in the community. So if we want to talk as simply as black churches, white churches actually having a bit of a property swap, there's something of that going on. It needs to happen, and it's not going to happen quite as easily as that. But now add another layer, David. We can actually have more conservative religious communities and more liberal communities sharing a space. And that's another division to think, come on, we do not need to have right and left attach themselves to religious beliefs. It's very unhelpful. Actually bringing them together in the same space, I believe, can give them space to express their beliefs, and we can run those properties in a more efficient way. So there's another, we used to call these unintended consequences, and now I'm realizing they are intended. That's where we're going.
Or maybe intended opportunities. I love it, Graham, how you're taking a whole bunch of factors, putting it together, and coming up with a fusion solution.
Well, I want to thank you, David, for all you're doing with Impact Alpha. We became a subscriber a couple of years ago during the pandemic when we had to sit and learn what was going on. And actually every single week I get deal structure into my inbox, webinars, and I've been learning, and I want to thank you for what you've done to help us get to where we are today.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you, Graham Singh from the Trinity Centers Foundation in Montreal.
Thanks, David.